this is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? I am going to try in this video to do a little bit of a book haul, books that I think I've all bought since January 1st. Then I'm going to do a review of Gilead, which I feel like I don't have closure on. It was part of the read-along that Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading is doing, and I read it, but I never really did a full review. So I'm going to do that. And then a little bit of current reading and a little bit of a life update. So that is my plan, but I'm gonna go finish making my coffee. I have my coffee now, it's decaf. I'm waiting for my husband to come down too, because our dog, our beagle, has had the weirdest thing going on the last couple of weeks where he suddenly seems to be in extreme pain, can barely move, just shivers, and he just seems like he's in horrible pain. And we took him to the very expensive ER, vet ER, and they said it was something with his neck, and they just gave him painkillers. So it's been off and on. It's mostly better, but last night it got really bad again. So my husband, I think, is going to try and take him to the vet this morning to get an x-ray or something. So we'll see how that goes. He might need me to help him get the dog in the car because he can't really walk. Anyway, and the other thing about today is that we're expecting a winter storm this afternoon, so all the schools have half day. So I just basically got back from dropping off my 9-year-old grandson at school, and now I'm gonna have to go get him early. So, well, we're gonna try and work all this in. And then I'm also watching my two other grandkids, but on Tuesdays they go to school in the morning, so they go to a preschool. So I don't have to pick them up till 11:30. So I have a little time to make this video. Anyway, let me show you the books that I've gotten this year. I'm not doing that read from your shelf thing that other people are doing. I did that one year, but the big thing is I got a new Kindle, and this was unexpected. Last week, I got really sick with some horrible COVID-like thing that wasn't COVID, but I was pretty sick, and I'm still recovering from it. And at the same time, my Kindle just stopped working. The page would just go blank, or it would suddenly pop up with a message that I'd never seen before about how it couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi, which didn't make any sense. And it just needed, like it was always telling me it needed to be charged, even though I just charged it. So it really started to go on the fritz, and I was sick in bed, and I really like reading my Kindle in bed. So my husband, my sweet husband, got me a new one. So I had an Oasis, a Kindle Oasis, which I'd had maybe 8 or 9 years. This is a Paperwhite, which to me is a crazy name. It's black and it's not paper. It's definitely plastic. So who names these things? Anyway, I can't really see any difference. I don't see any major upgrades or anything. So I don't know. I think it's all marketing. But I'm glad to have a functioning Kindle, that's for sure. And I love this case he got me. He picked green because he thought, well, it's my favorite color, but also he thought it would be easier to find instead of something black or brown. I had a brown case before. And I don't know if you can tell, but it feels like a cloth-bound book. So it's really nice. So anyway, I'm very pleased. And right now I'm reading 3 books on this. I'm reading A Gentleman of Leisure by P.G. Wodehouse, which is the Faded Pages Book Club read for February. And I'm about 80% through that. And I started The Heart of Midlothian by Sir Walter Scott, which is Feb Regency. But I'm going to finish A Gentleman of Leisure first and then go back to it because I feel like I wasn't paying close enough attention and I don't quite know what's going on. So I just basically started that one. So I'm going to restart and figure out what actually is going on. But I'm planning to get back to that. And then the last thing I'm reading is The Question of Canon for the Theology Book Club. So yeah, so I got 3 books going on this Kindle. I'm very, very pleased. And then I don't know if I showed these before, but I bought these from, I believe, Thrift Books. Yeah. And I'm slowly collecting this Go9 edition of the 12 volumes of the Swallows and Amazon series by Arthur Ransom. And this is the next one that I need to read, The Big Six, which is set in the Lake District, which I was excited to read when I thought that I was going to the Lake District. I mean, I'm still excited to read it. I'm trying to read the whole series. But I was especially excited. But we've had a change of plans, which I'll go into later. And so this one is the next one. And I think this is number 7. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, this is 9. This is 9. So I need to read that next. And then this is the very last one in the series, which I was excited to read because I thought I was going to the Outer Hebrides, which I am not, but I will talk about that later. But this is the very last one. So I'm missing 2, and I just keep checking thrift books to see when this edition comes in. So I still need to get Missy Lee and the Picks and the Martyrs, and then I'll have the whole set. And I have to get the first book back from my sister. I lent it to her, and I don't think she read it. But anyway, I love Arthur Ransom. I love this whole series of Swallows and Amazons, and I highly recommend it. And I'm happy to be working my way through, and I'm happy I have these 2 books. I do not know when I'm going to read them, though. I haven't figured that one out. Then another book that I got since January 1st is it says The Mottled Lizard, the magical sequel to The Flame Trees of Thika, which was the first book that I read this year. And that was also with the Faded Pages book club. And I'm not sure when we're reading this or if we're going to read it I don't know. I don't know when this is going to happen, but I hope it happens soon because I really enjoyed the first book and I look forward to reading the sequel. So that's The Mottled Lizard by Elspeth Huxley. And then I bought this little book because of Linda at Book Lady, or Book Lady Linda. She was Elder Talk, and before that she was Book Lady. But anyway, she's been changing the name of her channel. But anyway, she influenced me a lot in my book buying, and she recommended this book for Epistolary January, Address Unknown by Catherine Cressman Taylor. And this took me one day to read in like 2 settings. It's really a novella or a short story, but it's told in letters. And wow, it was written in the 30s about the oppression of the Jews by Nazi Germany. So it's like written in real time. Yeah, copyright 1938. So they knew what was going on. This book shows that they knew what was going on in Germany. So yeah, very impactful, as they say. I thought it was excellent. Highly recommend. Thank you, Linda, for telling me about this book. And they say it's a classic, and I'd never heard of it before. But it deserves that status. So yeah, very good. And then I have other things that I'm studying. So I've been doing the Rosary in a year, which is basically meditations on Scripture. That's what it basically is, by Father Mark Mary Ames. I'm going to talk about a different Ames later when I talk about Gilead. But I was not familiar with him, but he's good. I'm really, really curious. I'm really, really enjoying this, and it is really... when I first got this, this book, when I ordered it, because the Rosary in a Year is a podcast, so you don't necessarily need to buy anything to go along with it. You could just listen. But when I got this book, I just didn't understand how it was set up, and I didn't think it was gonna really be helpful. But as I've gotten used to the setup, I do think it's quite helpful. And later on in the year, we're going to be doing meditations on these on art pieces. So I'm looking forward to that. We're basically going through the scriptural rosary 3 times in a year. And so the first part was just an introduction to all the prayers and what the prayers meant. And then, if you don't know, the rosary is a meditation on scripture. So you have these mysteries. You have the sorrowful mysteries, the joyful mysteries, the glorious mysteries, and the luminous mysteries. And all of them, each one takes 5 happenings in the Gospels, and you pray about them, you reflect on them. So that's what this is doing, and I think this is quite a helpful resource, so I'm glad I got it. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm doing an early church history study with my, sorry about the glare, I'm just noticing that now, with my church. Last week I was so sick, I just put on, like I didn't have the audio, or I didn't participate at all. I was completely muted because I kept coughing so much. I just listened to what they said. But it's tonight, every Tuesday for 10 weeks. We meet to discuss it. So you read the workbook, then you go and you watch like a 45-minute video, then you answer questions in the workbook, and then you have a discussion. So very interesting. This morning I read the D Decay, which I'd heard of. I thought it was some big thing, but no, it's a short writing, maybe I'll link to it below, that they discovered in the late 1800s, but it's dated to probably 80 AD. At first they thought it was more like 200 AD, but with better testing, they determined it was probably in the 1st century. So it's amazing. It's an absolutely amazing document. So yeah, I just read that, and so I'm going to learn so much in that. I'm really excited about that. And then the last thing is I was also influenced by Linda, the book lady. She decided she wanted to learn Hebrew. So I bought this set inspired by her. So I think she was primarily working on the workbook. So I'm not going to do this till after I'm done with this. This is 10 weeks, and it takes a few hours a week. So I can't put this on top of it. But after that, I'm going to do this, the Hebrew workbook. And then there is a Learn to Read Hebrew in 6 weeks. This is, I guess, kind of a textbook. And then there's a reader, the Hebrew reader. So yeah, so I'm excited. So those are all the things that I've bought since the beginning of this year, 2025. So pretty good book haul, I think. All right, then I wanted to do a review of Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. I've talked about this before, so I'm not gonna talk very long, but what do I want to say about this? Let me give a brief summary. So there's a pastor, his name is John Ames, and he was born, I think it was 1888, and he's in this little town called Gilead, Iowa, which I think is probably near the Kansas border. And he is an old man now. So I think he's writing in the 60s, maybe. It's the 1960s, perhaps, if my math is right. And he's writing to his young son. So he became a father in his old age. And he's been told he has a heart condition. He could die any minute. And so he is writing this long letter to his son. And it's all about, the primary biblical allusion, I think, is the prodigal son, because the story is all about the tension between generations. So Pastor Ames talks about his grandfather, who was an associate of John Brown and a fierce abolitionist who was involved in the whole Bleeding Kansas thing. And he talks about his own father, his brother, and then he talks about his friend Boughton, and his friend Boughton named his oldest son after John Ames. So that son's name is John Ames. They call him Jack. So he's talking all about his life. And of course, because he's a Christian pastor, it's a very Christian worldview. He's just a beautiful soul. It's very poignant. It's very heart-aching. It's beautiful and wise, and it's a 5-star read. It is just excellent. I'm so glad that Kelly did this read along, because I'd heard about it for ages and I'd never read it. So I'm so glad that she did this, because I finally read it, and I'm very pleased. I will say these two things that I'm about to say are not necessarily critiques. They're just my reaction as a fellow Christian to this book. The first, and it's so funny because I was looking around at people's comments on it, and I stumbled onto Tom, LA Books, his reaction, and the very two things that he pointed out that he liked were the two things that made me feel sort of a dissonance. Even though this is a 5-star read and I loved it, okay? But there were just two elements that didn't hit me right. So one of them is that while this story is of course imbued with this Christian worldview, it's an abstract worldview, and the book is not Christ-centered. Like for me as a Christian, it's the character, the personality, the dynamism, the dynamic aspect of Christ, right? We're followers of Christ, and he's not here. He's not here. I mean, there's abstract stuff is there, and he does occasionally say, I prayed to my Lord, but mostly he talks about God, Creator. It's more universal, and she might have done that on purpose to make it palatable to people who aren't Christian, because really it's a book about human experience and all the questions we have, and how we deal with pain and conflict and joy and all that stuff. It's human. It's so I think maybe she wanted to broaden that way, so she didn't lean heavy on the person of Christ, but I noticed the lack. And to me, I felt like Pastor Ames, as lovely and as wonderful and admirable as he is, I felt like his relationship with God didn't have a lot of intimacy. Like, it wasn't an immediate thing somehow. There was something, it's very abstract and in the head. Even though he's a person with a lot of heart, his faith seems to be more in his head. I don't know. There was something, I missed something. It didn't seem as intimate to me. And the second thing was his response, Pastor Ames' response, when like college students who were questioning would come back and question about, Christianity. And he got very defensive, and he wasn't going to argue with them. And he says something about how, you can't argue from the defense. And all I thought was, well, I'm glad Paul and Peter and all the missionaries don't feel that way about it, because, the Great Commission is go and make disciples of all men. And but again, I don't know, that might have been on purpose by Robinson's part, because he was kind of an insular guy, right? He didn't want to argue with people who were atheists or whatever. And he didn't ever want to leave the little dilapidated town of Gilead and his little dilapidated church. And he didn't want the conflict. Like when Jack comes to him and asks him about predestination, which to me is the big question in Calvinism, he didn't want to address it. And so I just think that's odd that a pastor doesn't want to be an evangelist, because he finds that he's a little defensive. But I think it was maybe it was showing the character that, as lovely a person as he is, he's not, of course he's flawed like all of us. So he has certain things he's got to work out. And that might have just been one aspect of it. So I don't know, but those were the two things that I sort of questioned. But otherwise, 5-star read. Excellent, excellent. All right, so I just finished Farmer Boy last night. That was for the Laura Ingalls Wilder read-along that Lizzie Faye Loves Books always hosts, and I think the other person hosting is Lindsay Reed. So excellent. This is like a compendium of, what people did to survive back in the day. It's just amazing, all the skills and how resourceful and how industrious they were. Really, really enjoyed this a lot. I want to read this to my 9-year-old grandson. I think we could both learn something from it. So I'm going to read that aloud to him. Right now I'm reading him The Rescuers. I forget who that's by, but there's those movies, The Rescuers, about the mice, Miss Bianca and everything. But yeah, so this was excellent. This is my 3rd year participating in the Laura Ingalls Wilder read-along. It goes from February 7th to February 10th. So you just read something short. So yeah, so this was great. This was the official group read. So they're having their live stream tonight, but unfortunately it's when I have my church history. So I won't be able to participate, but hopefully they'll put it up on YouTube and I'll be able to see it after the fact. Then the other big thing I'm doing is reading La Vendée, or Vendée. I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of flying through this. I'm probably going to be done this weekend. It's a group read it's a buddy read with Katie at Books and Things. So we're having a little bit of trouble, I think, connecting. I think Katie is extremely busy. She's been putting out such good content. She's really, I love the one she just did about the ranking of nobility in England. Yeah, really, this is a good, I'm really enjoying it. I know most people who love Trollope is kind of a, you know, doesn't rank as high, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the history. I think it's well written. I think the pacing is good. I think he balances the military aspects with the sort of homey domestic aspects very well. So I'm highly enjoying it. So yeah. All right. So the last thing is a quick life update. So first of all, my youngest son is getting married November 22nd. So that's a big deal. That's exciting. We're starting to was his bride to be is planning things, but a lot's going on. So he's getting ready to move out this summer, and his older brother, who still lives at home, is going to move out with him to help with rent and stuff. So that's going to be a huge change for us because we've had a lot of people living in this house, and yeah, it's going to be a huge change. The other thing is that my daughter, the two boys that I watch regularly, they're having another baby. So that baby's due in August. And then my husband and I were going to go on this trip. First, we were going to go to England and Scotland, and then we were just going to go to Scotland. And then my sister's work situation changed, and so she realized she couldn't go on vacation at all this summer. So then my husband and I were like, okay, maybe we'll just go to London and the Lake District. But then we had a real hard talk. And I said to him, where would you like to go? I want to travel somewhere. I'm turning 65. I wanted to travel this year for my 65th year. And I wanted to go to England and Scotland because, you know, I love to read. And my sister was going there anyway. She's gone several times. Anyway, so we had a heart-to-heart. And he said, I want to go to Alaska. So we are not going to England. We're going to Alaska. And he's already booked the cruise. And it's already all set up. So, yeah. So I'm going to Alaska this summer. I'm really excited about it, actually. I've wanted to go to Alaska for years. So, yeah, and I've never been on a cruise in my life. So we'll see if I like it or not. Anyway, so that's my exciting update. All right. So I hope that you are doing well and happy reading. Bye-bye.